Hi, everybody. I'm Bob Bowman, Editor-in-Chief of Supply Chain Brain. Welcome to this special presentation, Unifying Systems, Powering Growth, Future-Proof Your Delivery Operations, presented by Descartes. Quick reminder, there will be an audience question and answer session at the end of this presentation. Audience members are encouraged to submit their questions at any time during the presentation by clicking on that Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. So, for building supply distributors, complexity at scale often slows progress. When delivery performance is core to your customer promise, managing disconnected systems for routing, telematics, proof of delivery, and mobile workflows creates blind spots, reduces efficiency, and drives up risk. The opportunity is to streamline your technology stack with the integrated, future-ready solutions that are built for the demands of modern distribution. So today, we're going to have an executive level discussion on how building supply distributors are transforming their operations by uniting best-in-class technologies from Descartes, Geotab, Lytx, and Zebra. With that, I want to introduce our speakers for today. Graham Parfenik is a senior account executive at Descartes, a provider of best-in-class software and a single platform for delivery management that helps fleets optimize routes, streamline dispatch, and connect drivers and customers in real time. With nearly 6 years at Descartes, Graham worked with businesses to improve delivery efficiency, enhance customer service, and drive operational improvements using Descartes' routing, mobile, and telematics solutions. Lori Olson is team lead signature accounts with Geotab, the global leader in connected transportation and asset tracking solutions. With more than 10 years of experience in the fleet industry, Lori builds relationships and helps customers use data to achieve their goals. Jacob Gaffa is channel sales manager with Lytx. Its solutions harness the power of video to empower drivers and fleets to be safer and more efficient, productive, and profitable, so they can thrive in today's competitive environment. Jacob has been a member of the Lytx family since May of 2023. Prior to that, he worked at a startup telematics company for 5 years, with roles including product development, operations, warehouse management, technical support, account management, and sales. And Andre Louche is global strategy lead for transport and logistics with Zebra Technologies. Zebra provides best-in-class devices and technology that gives fleets real-time visibility and rugged, job-ready tools to keep drivers connected and operations running smoothly. Andre has spent more than 25 years in the supply chain, transport, and logistics field, both as a provider of technologies and services and as a customer. Welcome, everybody. With that, I'd like to pass the presentation over to Graham Parfenik. Graham, take it away.
Thank you, Bob, and welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to take us through a couple of slides to set the stage for what will be a great conversation. All right, I want to set the tone here by just giving you a quick snapshot of Descartes at a glance and how we help customers specifically in building supply. But as an organization, we have 29,000 customers, and that pool is growing every day. We're a global company with offices in more than 36 countries internationally. We are a team of 2,600 strong. We wake up every morning thinking about and helping our customers solve challenging logistics problems. We've been in the business a long time. We've had close to 20 years of year-over-year profitable growth. And then from a innovation perspective, we reinvest 2 times the industry average back into our technologies. So we're always trying to push the spear of what's possible to deliver value for our building supply customers. So I wanted to talk a little bit about why delivery operations are harder than ever. Delivery expectations are rising. Expectations from the consumer world and the Amazon effect spilling over into the B2B space. And with respect to building supply, there's more requests for first outs, there's tighter time windows, and there's fewer second chances. The industry is still riddled with manual paper-based processes, or in some cases, organizations have a bunch of disparate technology systems that don't talk to each other. Manual processes slow teams down and increase risk, and that can be the risk of showing up late and breaking a delivery promise, or the risk of being non-compliant to an important safety process. The industry is consolidating. There's a lot of growth through acquisitions, and there's a lot of complexities that come with that, where previous competitors, branches that were competitors, are now able to cooperate in the best interest of the end customer. And the impact of all this, there's higher claims, there's missed ETAs, wasted labor hours, lost customers, and ultimately running more miles in drive time than you need to. So just piggyback these industry trends on what distributors are telling us, and trying to get a little bit specific to routing, dispatch, execution, safety, and compliance. But from a routing and scheduling perspective, customers are more demanding. They're asking for first outs. They're competing for time windows. Late arrivals are unacceptable. They lead to churn, and the building supply space is very competitive. Or distributors are incurring more costs from 3PL spend. Routing is based on tribal knowledge. Whether you're using a tool or paper-based processes, still tribal knowledge is the primary way that building supply distributors are routing their trucks. And that results in cost leakage. Branches that were once competitors are now asked to partner, but they still plan in silos. So they're missing a lot of opportunities to find efficiencies and collaborate in the best interest of the customer. And same-day emergency orders are still a juggling act. These are the things we hear from a planning and scheduling perspective. From an execution perspective, over-the-road visibility is tough. It's unclear how productive drivers are being out there and if they're being as safe as they could be. A lot of inbound phone calls. Where's my order? When can we expect you to arrive? And when those inbound phone calls happen, CSRs and dispatchers, it's usually a multi-call resolution. Get a hold of the driver, figure out where they are, and try to give the customer a meaningful ETA. Inconsistent POD, proof of delivery, often on paper today, which slows the order to cash process and exposes the business to a whole bunch of risks that we'll get into. From a safety and compliance perspective, we want to coach our drivers. We need good data to do that. Not everybody in the building supply space has that data that they can rely on. And then coaching from a manual process, bringing drivers in, is cumbersome and labor intensive. It doesn't always happen as often as it should. Accidents and liability exposure. Accidents happen. It's rarely the fault of the commercial driver. They're professional drivers. It's what they do all day. They're always blamed. So how can we prevent false blame and the expensive costs that come with that? And then lastly, there's a bunch of compliance challenges with going on non-commercial roads with a commercial vehicle, not adhering to or not noticing when there's a preventative maintenance cycle that's coming up, that the vehicle requires an oil change, and or not seeing a dash light or not reporting the dash light, which increase costs of maintenance and other things. So this is what we're hearing in the space. So what are we doing about it from a group of technology vendors that in our own right, Descartes, Geotab, Lytx, Zebra, are best of breed in what we do, but how are we coming together to make the whole greater than the sum of the parts in the best interest of our building supply customers? So I'm going to step you through that today at a high level here. And we are united as a group of technology providers by design. And that's so we can solve all these problems and answer the challenges that we've just discussed. So I'm going to walk you through a day in the life of how we collaborate together in your best interest. It starts off on the bottom left with dynamic scheduling. As orders come in, we empower building supply customers to offer up time windows dynamically based on true logistics capacity, meaning you only offer windows that you know you can meet to your customers. The only thing worse than not making a promise to your customer is making a promise and then breaking it. So we help building supply distributors make better promises and keep them. Then the routes are optimized to reduce miles and drive time by 10 to 15% versus legacy systems. We pass those routes to the warehouse so they can use their ruggedized Zebra devices for scanning to pick in the warehouse and stage. We also help our customers load, their trucks and dispatch the trucks, scan validating the loads, and giving them ways to do that so that the load is built in context of the route. From a driver safety perspective, we empower building supply distributors with pre-trip inspections, micro learning. So if I'm a driver, I complete my pre-trip safety inspection. Then I'm presented with a micro learning, driver safety training learning, for instance, seatbelt compliance. And those trainings are based on how I, as the driver, performed yesterday relative to the telematics and video telematics data, which comes back into the system based on over-the-road performance. Once the driver completes their pre-work or pre-route activities for the day, they hit the road, they download their route on their Zebra device, they get the driver manifest, all their stops, commercial navigation turn by turn to reduce risk. We're collecting high-res video and vehicle telematics so that we have second-by-second data on how safe the driver is being and reducing their liability and making sure that they get home safe to their families. And then we have a bunch of in-cab alerts, both from a safety and productivity perspective, so that as the drivers are out on the road, we're helping them course correct. They're busy. They're doing everything they can to deliver to their customers. And while they're doing that, we make sure we're bringing them and centering them on safety and productivity live in the cab of the truck. Proof of delivery, signatures, pictures digitally captured, packaged up so that when the delivery's been made and the driver pulls off the property, we're presenting digital information both back to the back office of your organizations to streamline billing, but also to your customers to preemptively get ahead of any, hey, you didn't deliver product X, or where did you place the stuff on the job site, or you cracked my driveway when you pulled your heavy truck on. So we have configurable workflows that force the capture of all this important data to make sure that you're protected and that your customers get valuable information. When they return back to the branch, leveraging Zebra devices to offload any returns, capturing and bundling up how the driver did from a safety and compliance perspective and packaging that up in real time and giving it to them so that they can see on a scorecard on their mobile device how they did from a safety and productivity perspectives, and also sign off and acknowledge their awareness that they know how awesome they were or where they can improve. So that's the full suite of how Descartes, Geotab, Lytx, and Zebra combined together aim to help our building supply customers solve these problems.
Thank you so much, Graham. At this point, let's bring our entire panel back. Lori Olson of Geotab, Jacob Gaffo of Lytx, and Andre Lusch of Zebra for the panel discussion portion of our presentation, in which I have the privilege of asking these distinguished experts some questions about this subject, at the end of which time we will invite the audience to chime in. And so audience members, be sure and be submitting those questions that you'd like to ask, even as we are doing this, and we'll get to as many of your questions at the end as possible. So let's set the stage here, kind of in an introductory way. Graham, why don't we start out by you telling me what you believe to be the biggest delivery challenges you're hearing from building supply leaders, and how are those shifting as expectations rise?
Got it. And you hit the nail on the head. Expectations are rising. The number one way building supply distributors differentiate from their competitors is by reliable, repeatable deliveries that are on time and in full. So with that in mind, scheduling those deliveries as the orders come in and offering time windows to customers or committing to time windows is the biggest challenge, or one of the biggest challenges. And what we're seeing leading distributors do to get ahead of that is they're leaning into technology where routing and scheduling are interconnected deeply. And routing is continuously happening as orders flow into the system, such that at any one given time when an order comes in, routes are already pre-built and free capacity is readily available. So you can propose windows to your customers or commit to windows based on true logistics capacity. So you make better promises that you know you can keep, and then you follow through on those promises.
Thanks. Andre, you've worked in both tech and logistics operations. What challenges do you see customers facing when they're trying to optimize their supply chain operations while ensuring control, safety, and high service standards?
The easy answer would probably be find the right partner. But if we want to double click on this, is so if you mentioned safety, service pressure, and security, I think. What is missing here is speed and agility. So that's one of the aspects that we see a lot of pressure on the market. I think Graham mentioned it earlier. Is making sure that you have your employees empowered to make decisions at the edge. At any given point in the chain that Graham showed us earlier, there will be decisions that need to be made by an employee, and they need to be made quickly, and they need to be made ideally without going back to a supervisor. Have you empowered your employees? Have you provided them with the information that they need to make these decisions at the edge? That is something that I think would complete the picture that you just described.
Mm-hmm. Combined, of course, with the technology. That's interesting. So, Lori, when fleets operate across multiple platforms, which they do quite a bit of the time, what tends to fall between the cracks? I mean, what does telematics help bring into focus? And also, what are the metrics that matter the most?
Thanks so much, Bob. So, as you mentioned, with the digitization of everything, there are more and more partners that fleets are utilizing in order to streamline their operations. And when you're working across a patchwork of platforms, there's a struggle sometimes to maintain a holistic view of operations. And a number of pieces of information do get lost because it becomes static and there are blind spots that are created. When you have an open telematic platform, we're able to ingest data from all these disparate systems, enabling you to layer the information on top of each other so you can better track metrics such as your safety, your routing and optimization, what's your productivity, what's compliance, where are maintenance, fuel consumption, idling, even driver behavior. When you're able to layer all of that information into one system, that allows you to run a compliant, a safer, a smarter fleet that also can improve the optimization and delivery time for your customers, as well as improve your productivity within your fleet as well. And being able to layer all that information allows you to then visualize in one location where the gaps are so that you can improve those metrics over time in real time.
I wonder, very soon we're going to get to the point where we look back and we're going to say, how did we ever do all that stuff manually? I mean, the routing and the
So
scheduling,
true.
such a brutally complex proposition. And of course, human beings have been doing it since the dawn of time, but certainly not with the efficiency and the effectiveness that they can do now with these tools at hand. So thank you very much for that. So Jacob, tell me about some of the risks or the behaviors that often go unseen until video and telematics are connected. What surprises fleet leaders when they finally get that visibility?
What surprises fleet leaders? So, one of the main areas that these organizations who have implemented Lytx dash cameras notice after their first year is, wow, we're not at fault for as many collisions as we thought. It's very easy to put the commercial vehicle at fault when there's an incident, knowing you'll likely settle. But when you have a dash camera, you no longer have to settle because the evidence is there. You protect your business, you protect your drivers, you protect them from other drivers on the road. Now, for those collisions where you are at fault, now you know why. Before implementing video, you don't know the full story, you don't know the full context as to what happened. We're seeing a very high percentage of our customers who are at fault in a collision is due to distracted driving. 88% of at-fault collisions are due to an avoidable driver error. Another area is cell phone usage. I can't tell you how many times I've heard a fleet who has a zero tolerance when it comes to cell phone usage and have implemented a hands-free policy, but have no way to hold their drivers accountable. And that's kind of where technology like ours changes the game. Not only can it help determine fault after an incident, but it can also detect risky behaviors like distractions, like phone usage, like tailgating, like running stop signs in real time. And even better, it can coach the driver in real time to correct those behaviors and often preventing a collision before it ever happens. So that combination of protection and prevention is what gives fleet leaders a real peace of mind, knowing they're not only defending their drivers, but also actively reducing risk on the roads every day.
Considering that studies show that even hands-off cell phone use can be a distraction, it's very important that you have this capability to know whether they were just even using the phone, whether they were using hands-on or hands-off. But again, what a step forward in monitoring driver behavior from just being able to know what speed they were going, now all this other stuff. So thank you for that. So that's a good way that we can kind of set the scene of what we're talking about today. I want to move on to this concept, though, of going from disconnected to connected, which is the core of what we're talking about today, and just what that type of integration really looks like. So, Andre, tell me what your customers are expecting from Zebra around hardware and software integration to drivers and delivery teams.
Yeah, I think the answer is almost in the question. So they're looking for world-class hardware. And I think what is often overlooked is the fact that you need to be able to provide a partner ecosystem. And in our case, it's 10,000 partners that can pretty much solve any and all industry challenges or individual workflow optimizations, whatever is required through software that is being put onto the devices that we're providing. So a world-class partner and very rich ecosystem of qualified and integrated providers. The often overlooked, if you're looking into hardware that you buy in some consumer type of setting, this is exactly what is missing. The integration is missing, the ecosystem of something as simple as accessories. Does it really work in your truck? Can you really mount it onto your forklift? Whatever is required. So these kind of things, a rich partner ecosystem, and then subsequently all the required interfaces and integration parts, that is something that I think separates good companies from great companies.
Even the best software in a standalone mode is of no use to you unless it plays nice with everything else, all the other systems. So thank you for that. Yeah. So Jacob, let's talk about video. How does it elevate fleet awareness and risk management? And what do you think? What's the most important shift that you're seeing in this respect?
Well, the most important shift that I'm seeing and Lytx is leading is a major transformation in the industry that historically has recognized first notification of loss into what we call first notification of risk. This is a transition from a reactive approach to a proactive approach. So instead of investigating after an accident occurs, we give you the data that you need to investigate before an accident. You'll have visibility into your top performing drivers, which should be recognized or incentivized or rewarded for being the best and safest drivers in your fleet. And you will have visibility into your bottom performing drivers, which should be recognized as risky drivers who are more likely to be in a collision that should be coached on their behavior. This is the number one trend that we're seeing in the industry is these fleets are starting to take safety more serious and are transforming from a reactive to a proactive to a predictive approach and reducing collisions and keeping their drivers safe.
So video raises you to a new level of being able to identify these so-called red flags that make you kind of wake up and say, hey, we've got a risk here before the problem actually
Absolutely.
occurs. Very interesting. Okay. So Lori, when telematics connects directly with dispatch and routing, what changes and what new visibility capability does that unlock?
Well, Bob, this is a really interesting question because we're seeing more and more of our customers start looking at what's the next step in optimizing their own operations and connecting to a very solid routing and optimization tool ultimately creates an entire operational paradigm shift. Because just as Jacob was saying, there's we're continually digitizing and combining platforms, you obviously state the connectivity closes the loop between what the plan was. And before, you were looking at all the trip history, assuming, and it was very after the fact. Now that we have an immediate and live comparison, managers can see the deviation. They're able to start looking at understanding this appointment so they can actively go back and look at who else is available to make that next step. They can make real live decisions and adjustments. The synergy between telematics and dispatch and routing just unlocks a whole new layer of operational intelligence, clear sight lines where they were originally opaque. And being able to look at the difference of being to improve and increase the routing and the delivery times, increases productivity, and ultimately improves your overall bottom line down the road.
Graham, I want to drill down a little more to this whole issue of integration because it's so essential because there's so many different systems here, as I say, have to play nice together. Just kind of, what is the difference between loosely connected tools and a actual unified system? And what does full integration look like when it's actually done right?
It's a great question, Bob. And when I think of loosely connected systems, I mean, that can mean a whole bunch of different things. It could be a bunch of paper processes that aren't linked in any way, shape, or form. It could be a partially digitized process where there are complete blind spots between routing, dispatch, execution, safety. And it could be a completely connected system. So let me walk you through quickly what that looks like and how the partners on this call are coming together to do just that. But when I think about scheduling and planning, for example, there are a lot of business rules and constraints, one of them being hours of service. As an example, hours of service is commonly measured in a telematics system, but a routing system needs to plan and optimize drivers and routes in context of hours of service. So the legacy approach was, hey, I'm a planner. I build routes. It might be Friday afternoon. It's the end of a cycle, like a hours of service cycle. And I got to toggle between my telematics system and I got to look at my routing process and make sure I'm not over planning a driver such that they're going to get an alert in their telematics system halfway through their delivery route. You've got 2 hours left, return home to branch because you have no hours or capacity. So from a planning perspective, interconnecting with telematics is really critical, especially from an hours of service perspective. There are others as well. But dispatch and execution, again, you build a route plan, it becomes the labor standard for the driver that day, drive times, service times, AM time, PM time. We can use GPS, telematics data, and breaking geofences to provide an additional layer of accuracy around, is the driver performing to plan? And if not, we can, in our mobile application, because of our deep integration with Geotab, prompt a reason code. Hey, you showed up 27 minutes late, Graham, to this stop. How come? And I can coach the driver in real time and collect meaningful data that can go back into the routing system to improve the accuracy of future planning cycles. And then from a safety and compliance perspective, getting safety data, because there's always a balance between productivity and safety. And drivers often come back and say, yeah, I was late to stop 6, but I didn't want to speed. So interconnecting safety data with productivity data is mission critical to make sure that drivers are safe and productive. And in the case where a driver maybe missed a delivery window, but was driving a speed limit, that could be a config change in the routing software because maybe the road speeds were accelerated too much. Yeah. It's not necessarily the driver's fault. So interconnected systems makes for more efficiency, more safety, happier employees and drivers at the end of the day.
Let's sum up this discussion of integration. I think, Graham, you led perfectly into my next question, which I think I will then direct to Andre, Jacob, and Lori for brief answers. Just beyond pure efficiency, let's talk about or sum up how integration helps these different teams. Dispatch, drivers, customer service. How does it help them all work better together? Andre, why don't I start with you on that one?
I would say, I mentioned this earlier, I would say speed, real-time decision making and feeding back. If you're looking into feeding back your actions or your results, if you look at a task management engine that says this is what needs to be done, this is what I'm expecting, if you can do this in real time, all subsequent tasks will be of a better quality, and all previous tasks will get a better update of what just happened. So real time updates of task results.
Jacob, what did you see about to sum up for us that question?
Yeah, integration is so important. There's all types of moving pieces and pieces of technology that can help enhance your operations. And so, partnering with a leader like Descartes, who brings in all these different technologies into a single pane of glass and single platform, is very important for improving your operations and making your operations more safe and efficient.
Lori, just a quick word from you on that before we move on. Just again, sum up for us the how integration helps these different teams.
Have a strong partner ecosystem.
Actually, Laura, you might be breaking up here.
You're going to move from reactive.
Oh, here we go. Okay, I think Lori's.
Is that better?
She's gonna. Yeah, we'll give you a moment to adjust yours, but let's move on to the next section here. I want to talk about proof of delivery, claims, cost control, these essential elements in any operation of this kind. So, Graham, how are building supply distributors using mobile workflows and timestamp data to reduce missed deliveries, site damage claims, customer disputes, all that? Speak to how this data also supports proactive customer communication and proof for insurance purposes, because I think we haven't talked enough about the customer end. So let me hear your views on that, Graham.
Yeah, got it. That's totally a critical part of building supply distribution is the three things you just cited. I'll just knock them off quickly in order. But from an on-site products go missing. So for example, I'm a driver, I show up, I deliver all 8 pallets of shingles, I leave the job site. The historical approach is a phone call goes in to the branch, says, hey, you said you deliver 8 shingles, 8 pallets, you only delivered 7, I need my shingles. And because the driver hasn't returned yet with the paperwork, there's a bunch of phone tag that happens and a bunch of labor. And ultimately, what it boils down to is there's a sense that the customer is always right. And what happens is the building supply distributor is on the hook to replace the materials. So they lose the cost of the materials. And there's an expense incurred in having to redeliver that missing pallet. That's the current state that challenge we hear. What leading distributors are doing these days, they're enabling their drivers with mobile technology. So when they show up to the job site, they click on the stop. A workflow is initiated with mandatory steps to take pictures of the product in context of the job site to prove that it was all there and precisely where it was delivered. So that proactively gets ahead of the, hey, you never delivered. So when it comes to lost product, that's 1 to 3% of top line revenue annually for building supply distributors. So it's material and meaningful to get ahead of that. And then from a liability perspective, there's the whole notion of, hey, you cracked my driveway. Your truck pulled on the driveway, cracked it. You owe me 20 grand to fix it. So there's workflows built in so that the driver takes a picture of the driveway before they pull on with the heavy truck and after. So there's pre and post. And all this is packaged up and presented to the customer proactively once the delivery has been made to get ahead of all these calls. And then lastly, from a customer engagement perspective and communicating effectively, we're getting GPS pings and statusing from the mobile device as the driver's making deliveries throughout the day. And we're constantly recalculating the ETAs of when the end contractor can expect the delivery to arrive. And we have Uber style track my order where they can actually, if you want your customers to see the truck moving on the map with a countdown clock, 30 minutes, 17 minutes, 2 minutes, we can offer that level of resolution so that your contracting customers can keep their job sites moving and productive.
You're really in danger of spoiling the customer. Any provider that is unable to provide that level of visibility in future, it just isn't going to be able to compete. That's really interesting. Jacob, let me ask you about on this insurance question. How customers are using video footage to protect their drivers and support insurance claims when incidents occur on the road or at the job site.
Yeah, so this video footage that you now have access to can be used for a million different things, but exoneration and not at fault collisions and false claims is going to be the #1 way that you utilize this footage to protect your drivers, your workers. And like we talked about earlier, it's very easy to put the commercial driver at fault. Now that you have video, that's going to change. And you are going to see a reduction in these types of claims. You're also going to start seeing, and insurers love this, a quicker time to resolution when there is a claim. So you now have this video evidence. It helps eliminate the he said, she said, protecting your drivers. And the video will also help eliminate or significantly reduce that lengthy and expensive litigation process.
Andre, what do you think is often overlooked when you're selecting mobile devices for field use? And in other words, what should decision makers be considering to avoid these hidden costs? And how can they future-proof their investment as delivery demands and workflows evolve?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and one that we get a lot, and it might not be intuitive. So, have you bought the right tool for the task? I mean, are we investing in a rugged device instead of a consumer device that has a life cycle of 2 years? Did you buy something that lasts 5 years, something that can be repaired if necessary? Did you invest in a purpose-built device that has the form factor you need? Is it being worn on your finger, on your wrist, on your arm, on your hip? Is it a tablet? Is it a more computer in the hand? Does it have the ecosystem? We mentioned this earlier. I think we cannot stress enough the whole partnership or partner ecosystem idea. I mentioned this earlier in one of the previous answers. Are there accessories available? And one thing that becomes more and more important is, will this device be updated 3 years from now, 5 years from now? Is the company still around 3 or 4 years from now? We're seeing some consolidation in that market too, and some new companies springing up. There's some providers, just as like Zebra, that have been around forever. We're 50 years old. So is there a chance that your provider is going to go out of business? Is there a chance that they're going to discontinue the device itself? So lots of longer reaching decisions that need to be made. And this industry is not necessarily one that is known to work on exorbitant margins. So there is a total cost of ownership consideration that is obviously on the forefront as well.
Okay, thank you. We're going to need to move along to our final section here. We're going to talk about managing change. We're going to talk about adoption, alignment, and that magic phrase, future-proofing. Let's start out by asking Lori, how do you see successful fleets turning telematics into real behavior change? And what is actually moving the needle? Lori, you are muted. Now you're not
Moving the
muted. Thank you.
needle
Go ahead.
Moving the needle is definitely an important component. We've got to be able to not just focus on vehicles being dots on a map, we're well beyond that. And so when we're able to turn telematics and work with our very strong ecosystem, as it's been mentioned earlier today, being able to create a powerful catalyst and a culture of safety and efficiency is necessary. Customers are able to achieve real and sustained driver behavior by moving beyond scorecards. Tools like our risk analytics allow us to be able to see industry benchmarking as well as insights to the most and least safe drivers so that we have insights on then how to coach them. You need to have a coaching workflow to keep track of those conversations. And then when you take into consideration the contextual data that comes from cameras like Lytx, you know for certain when your driver is not at fault. So moving the needle, it's not because of Big Brother monitoring. We have more and more fleets wanting to have all the technology. Technology is not the biggest problem of adopting it, but continually coaching drivers, coaching managers, explaining what the expectations are and having the visibility to be able to follow through with that, which empowers drivers. And then being able to reinforce with the carrot through our vitality program allows the drivers the opportunity to take the change in their own hands, in the wheel, and drive forward for safety and really move the needle themselves, right? They need to be able to have and take responsibility without managers coming down and speaking to them. That's what's really moving the needle, giving the power back to the drivers, knowing that from a management perspective, we've got their back and we are supporting everything that they're doing.
Okay, thanks. Jacob, driver trust, big deal, right? What's working when it comes to building buy-in around these dash cams and coaching? I mean, how do the drivers feel about this whole thing?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked this, Bob. This is the $1 million question, right? People will come to me and say, Jacob, we love Lytx. We totally see the value and all the great benefits of having dash cameras, but we just don't want to upset our drivers. We're afraid they're going to quit. Well, first off, 10 out of 10 times, those drivers who are the noisiest and push back the most are going to be the ones with the most unsafe driving habits. Now, any driver who threatens to leave a company because you are deciding to take the next step in your safety journey are probably drivers that you don't want working for you anyway. The organizations that are the most successful in gaining driver buy-in are the ones who are the most transparent with them. We highly recommend a driver orientation program that takes place prior to implementation of video, where you introduce why you're adding dash cameras. This is a safety tool. This is not a spy tool. These are here to protect you from other drivers, how the cameras work, how you're going to use them, what behaviors they're going to detect, when are they recording, when are they not recording, who's got access, changes that you're making to your safety policy. All of this transparency will go such a long way. Also, creating some type of incentive program for your top performing drivers is extremely important. Driver of the week, driver of the month, driver of the year, a free lunch, a special parking spot, whatever it is, will help you create a positive safety first culture and lead to drivers being more bought in on the program. Now, for the bottom performing drivers, we recommend offering a grace period for drivers to get comfortable with the dash cameras before immediately introducing disciplinary action. And by disciplinary action, I don't mean to just fire your drivers if they have bad habits. Work with them, sit down, review video together, make sure they understand your safety policy. Have these coaching conversations that will ultimately lead to fewer collisions, increased productivity and uptime, and most importantly, ensures they make it home to their families each and every day.
Okay, thanks for that. Real quickly then, Andre, when a team is moving from paper to mobile workflows, where should they even start? What makes adoption stick across all these locations?
Two different schools of thought, and both leading to the same way. One is a bottom up. If you have a team that is motivated to start the digitization journey, start small, build momentum, crawl, walk, run, and start convincing your superiors that there's really something there. Top down, CFO down, you want to look for the pot of gold. What is the process that would benefit the most from being digitized?
Okay, and then very quickly, we're just about out of time on the panel. Graham, tell me just very quickly strategic benefits of partnering with one platform and a connected tech ecosystem. Sum that up for us.
One hand to high five and a unified set of goals and metrics that all the integrated systems are working collaboratively and synergistically to achieve.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much for that. Interesting panel, but I really do want to bring the audience in. We do have some questions that have already come in, and you can continue to post those questions as we move ahead here. We'll get to as many of them as we can possible. So let me just throw these out. I don't know who would be the best one for it, but let's just talk about the first steps for a distributor that's still mostly paper-based is what we're talking about here today. Maybe Graham, I'll just hit you with that first. some kind of lightning round answers here.
Yeah, going on a journey like this, it's good to be thoughtful. It's good to partner with an organization or organizations that have walked this journey before. Start small, crawl before you walk and run. Identify a branch that is interested and enthusiastic about leaning into technology, and start by doing some great discovery work there together with your vendor partners, identifying the greatest value opportunities, and then get after them, whether it's routing, mobile, telematics, handheld devices, wherever the greatest value is, start there and start small.
Lori, what's your view from telematics standpoint, those first steps? You're okay, there you go.
And moving beyond even what Graham had just said, right? It is just that they have to take a crawl, walk, run approach. Once you're implementing telematics, a number of times what we like to do is focus on one goal. Do you want to focus on speeding? Do you want to focus on seatbelts? And we start with one factor and we track that and we track the growth. And then we move on to the next goal. Is idling or fuel consumption a key? So we start small again and we tackle little things along the way until within 5 years, you're utilizing everything.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Andre, you have a perception on that, first steps?
Yeah, I mean, you can, if you look into the workflows themselves, you just walk around any facility, and if there's a clipboard involved in a pen, that should be your first candidate, right? So in most environments, there's a lot of still manual picking, quality control inbound, or shipping preparation outbound. So there are lots of processes, getting signatures, these kind of things that are ripe for digitization.
Thanks. And Jacob, just a quick note on there on your idea of these first steps for a distributor moving out of paper-based use.
Yeah, I think we're at a time where you shouldn't be scared. You should want to utilize this technology that enhances your operations. You should want to utilize this technology to take safety more serious, develop policy, hold your drivers accountable, and create safer roads. Safety is efficiency, and efficiency is money.
Mm-hmm. Here's a good question. We did talk about, the employee part, the driver part, driver satisfaction and driver acceptance. But again, driver turnover is a reality in this world. So this questioner says, how do you manage tech adoption when you have high driver turnover? Maybe I'll ask Graham to start on that one.
High tech adoption, it first starts with the why. How come we're transitioning technology? What's in it for all the stakeholders, including the driver? What's in it for the driver? How is their day going to change? And if there was high driver turnover, I'd try to connect that back to the main reason why drivers are turning over. There's probably many benefits to adopting technology that could reduce the number one pain that's causing drivers to leave.
Mm-hmm. Andre, what about this high driver turnover situation?
I think we're on a journey where we're automating a lot of non-value adding tasks, right? So if you're taking that out of the daily requirements for a driver, I think it would benefit. And I think a lot of some of the most loyal drivers would probably testify to that. Is that, look, the more you free me up with all this stuff that is mundane, that is repetitive, that is maybe dangerous, even if it comes to strain injuries or whatever it may be, the more you can help me with automating some of these tasks or avoiding them, the more it would benefit the driver.
Interesting angle on this question, though. I mean, even if you do have high driver turnover, you have this constant need to retrain the new drivers who are coming in with these systems. I mean, Jacob, what do you think about that? Is there a lot of ease in getting a quick onboarding of drivers in terms of embracing all this technology, or is that an issue?
Well, I think it kind of goes back to Graham's point of transparency, why you're doing it, and then also creating that positive culture around some of this technology. If you're experiencing high driver turnover, maybe it's a culture problem that needs to be addressed. First, starting with transparency, and second, working with those drivers to create programs to incentivize and create more positivity around the technology.
Here's a question I think is a natural for Lori, so I will direct it to you. How do you build a business case for upgrading telematics or mobile hardware?
By adding telematics and other hardware, you're going to be able to have just a single pane of glass to be able to see who's doing what and where. And so when you're looking at adopting a new technology, being able to build a business case starts with the three pillars, right? You have to understand the pain of sticking with the status quo. What happens if I do nothing? And then be looking at the final on investment, and then looking at the strategic and operational benefits. Because when you look at all three of those, if you do, the cost of doing nothing means that you're actually moving backwards. You're not moving forwards with the rest of the industries that are most going to succeed, which means you could be left behind.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The mobile hardware side, just a quick add-on.
Please
It's
do.
an aspect of future-proofing your investments. So if you in the future want to participate in anything, no conversation in 2025 is complete without mentioning AI. So if you want to future-proof your investment and have the potential to use any of the artificial intelligence capabilities, you have to look into your device fleet as well.
All right, guys. Boy, that has been a really educational hour. What a great presentation from you. Thank you so much for your responsiveness to my questions. Audience, thank you so much for your participation and your great questions as well. Unfortunately, we have time for just one final question, and here it comes. Looking ahead, what is one trend or shift you think distribution leaders should be watching? And what is one piece of advice you would offer to help them modernize and future-proof their delivery operation? Lori.
Thanks. It's been a great hour. I've learned so much from everyone here. I think the one thing I want to pass on that everyone remembers is to future-proof, you have to be proactive and get to predictive analytics. You need to have that single pane of glass, which means digitization is key. And just what Zibber just shared is being able to then, once you can digitize it, you can visualize the data, and then you can plug that into all your AI tools. That's going to help you scale faster and further beyond those that are not going to be using the digital tools that you have available, especially when you marry all of the information together.
Graham, last word to you.
The building supply space is going through a rapid digital technology transformation. The distributors that are going to win 2, 3, 5 years out are those that lean into technology and invest now and get on the bus.
A very compelling argument, Graham, and all of you have made a great case. Thank you so much, Graham Parfenick, Lori Olson, Jacob Gaffa, and Andre Lusht for that fantastic presentation. Very informative. And audience, thank you so much for your participation as well. Here is an asset for you. This is a video on driving efficiency featuring Richard's Building Supply. You can take a quick shot of that QR code right now, or if you don't have time to, because we're almost at the end, don't worry about it. This will be sent to all attendees of this webinar upon its conclusion, which unfortunately is right now. Thanks very much, everybody. Again, great presentation. Audience, people, have a fantastic day.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.